Welcome to Young Money with Tracy Bissett, the advice show for young millionaires in the making. It's time for some $1 Million Straight Talk with Tracy, President and Chief Financial Fitness Trainer at Bissett Financial Fitness. Each week, Tracy's going to tell you what you need to know now at the beginning of your earning curve. Basic and advanced financial concepts made clear, healthy money habits and the missteps to avoid, and all the stuff that you can do to set yourself up for a future of fantastic financial freedom. Ready to lace up and start this week's financial fitness training? Let's do it, Tracy.
Welcome to the Young Money Podcast. I'm really excited. We have a very special guest today, Jason Pereira. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you.
So Jason began his career in the financial industry in 1997 in the brokerage business and has been with Woodgate Financial since 2007. Committed to the betterment of the industry, he volunteers with the Financial Planning Standards Council and mentors several entrepreneurs. In addition, he is also a lecturer at the Schulich School of Business at York University, where he teaches financial planning. He contributes regularly to the Globe and Mail's Financial Facelift section and hosts several podcasts, including FinTech Impact and Financial Planning for Canadian Business Owners. He is highly educated, earning an MBA, his Chartered Financial Analyst designation, and is a certified financial planner in both Canada and the U.S. His commitment to the industry has been recognized both nationally and internationally with many awards. And his specialties include financial investment, financial insurance, tax and estate planning, and corporate wealth management. So welcome again to the show, Jason.
Well, thank you yet again. Appreciate it.
Quite a bio that I just read through. So I'd love it if you could start by sharing what a typical day looks like for you and what prompted you to get started in this industry.
I love that question because there is no typical day. So let me tell you what the more common work is. The more common work is just guiding my clients through our general process, which is broken up into various meetings, which includes different meetings for financial planning, investment, insurance, tax, and estate planning, all separate from each other because trying to take in more than one of those topics at once is just too much. So we have a routine schedule that we follow on that, which if they're onboarding for the first year, we typically cover that in the first 6 to 9 months. And then once they've been with us, those are continuously updated over the course of 3 years. But that's kind of the typical stuff. The non-tip, and then the other stuff is basically calling them on and speaking to them on a regular basis. By the time we've set everything up, a lot of the conversations are just about what's going on in their lives. So I can come to understand if there's any way that I can support them and lend support to them. And then really the majority of my time is putting out the fires in their lives or dealing with the pressing issue. Not everybody's got a pressing issue at all times, thankfully, otherwise I couldn't handle it. But, it's entirely normal where I will spend, 2 or 3 years in just a routine pattern with a client, and then something happens that requires focus and attention for 2 or 3 months solid to basically get them over that hump. So yeah, it's the dealing with the routine and then dealing with the exceptions and then dealing with all my other little kind of side hustles and other things that keep me busy.
Yeah, you are pretty busy. So our young money listeners, they may not be fully familiar with financial planning. So what does being a financial planner mean to you? And how is it, you've just talked through how you help your clients, but kind of in layman's terms for them, how is that kind of actually happening?
Well, here's what it really comes down to. Dealing with the right financial planner is having someone in your life that you get to turn to that will basically ask you what is it you want out of life and actually help you get there. Frankly, there's of all the professionals you deal with, you basically hope to not have to see a doctor other than for routine appointments. And I will say that they save more lives than any financial planner ever could. But the reality is who else in your life actually tries to enable the best version of your life and does so as a profession, right? So that is essentially what a good planner will do. And that does mean dealing with all the traditional check boxes, right? So, we have a core 5-step process. One is development of a financial plan, which is all about auditing where they are currently, making sure we understand who they are and what they want out of life, and being able to put in a plan for how we connect those dots. What does he have to save? What does he have to do? What investment vehicles to put in place? All that sort of stuff. And then the investments basically are quite, once you have that done, the investments actually are quite easy. We already done all the heavy lifting to understand what should be done, and then we just implement the investments. Another meeting around protection. What are the different forms of insurance that are available to them? Where should they be focusing their money as opposed to just, the random stuff that they get pitched? And then how does that change over time? The tax planning, which is really a big big education session so that they can debunk the myths of what is out there. Because I don't know where some people pick these things up, but there's some crazy myths going on out there, and we just educate them as to how things work and what the planning to date is done, and then other strategies that might be of interest. And then the wills and powers of attorney are handled in the estate planning to make sure that if anything happens to them, they are fully taken care of. And even young people, basically the second you're 18, you need powers of attorney, because suddenly your parents can't direct your affairs should anything happen to you. So that is kind of start to finish your traditional stuff. But the rest of it is basically, again, life enablement. So clients who, I'll refer people to everything from doctors to contractors to negotiate their car leases for them if it's a point of stress, like anything where we can add value, reduce their cost, and just enable them to live their lives as they see fit and focus on making the money they're supposed to and spending the money they're supposed to. That's really what we're trying to do, is liberate the heavy lifting of money and enablement of their life.
Excellent. And every one of those steps could be a full show. But today, because it is Small Business Month in Canada, we're really going to focus on business owners. And so are there different reasons, or what are the primary reasons that business owners come to work with you? I'm curious to know once you go through that, are they coming to you at the right time, or do you wish they came a little bit earlier?
It's a real mixed bag. It really is. What typically happens is the business owners will come to me for one of two reasons. A, they've either been dealing with someone and they've come to realize that person's a product salesperson and that hasn't provided any kind of proactive advice or anything. So, they're starting to understand that there's a misnomer between the promise of advice and the actual execution. So that's the first piece. The second thing is that more often than not, they come to me when they've hit a certain level of complexity. Right? Their the underlying core business is successful. Like, I'm not the person who's going to help them manufacture a widget better. That's just not going to happen. But as you basically get successful, the old saying is money doesn't solve problems. Money doesn't solve all your problems. You just have a different class of problems. So they start getting into issues surrounding corporate structure, partnership, key people, succession planning, dealing with taxation, like all kinds of issues that they didn't have before the money started flowing into the business. And they got into business to do that thing. They didn't get in that business to run the infrastructure of the legal and accounting side. So that's where someone like myself comes in, because not only do I understand like the personal side, as we said earlier, I tend to specialize in business owners specifically, and understanding that they really have two different existences. There's everything that happens with their business world, everything that happens in their business world, everything that happens in their personal side of their world. And while a lot of people treat the money like it's the same, it absolutely is not. There are serious implications to how you basically move money between both of those worlds. And if you don't optimize for that properly, you could get negative effects. So really, it's a matter of a lot of organization, a lot of restructuring, a lot of just putting the structure in place so that as they continue to be successful, we can basically capitalize and maximize the efforts that they put in place. Do I wish they came to me earlier? Sometimes, yes. Sometimes they've unfortunately been sold things or had other things put into place where undoing that is going to be costly. But that said, sometimes, coming to me from day one is also is there's little benefit, right? Like if you're going to just open up a sole proprietorship and start from zero, not a huge benefit there.
Do you commingle your personal or business expenses? Do you run your business from your bank account? Or defer to your bookkeeper or accountant for financial matters? If you do one or all of these things, the live Biz Money Mistakes Masterclass, Top 3 Mistakes to Avoid and How to Take Control of Your Business is for you. This live training has been specifically designed for entrepreneurs with sales in the 6 to 7 figure range who want to proactively change the way they are handling their money matters and navigate the current environment with success. So if you are an entrepreneur with sales at these levels and want to make informed, powerful money decisions, you do not want to miss this important class. Head over to the show notes, check out the link. It's bizmoneymistakes.com so you can register today. Stop waiting for things to change, take back control of your business, and join me for the live Biz Money Mistakes Masterclass.
And so with these successful business owners that you're working with, what are the things that they're doing right that you see?
They're actually, I would say they actually act like business owners. There's a book called the EMyth. I'm not sure if you've ever covered this. And it's basically, it talks about how the myth is that all business owners are entrepreneurs. That's not the case. Most business owners are, for lack of a better term, technicians, what it is they do. They basically they basically, they're good at making widgets, whatever that widget is, whether that be food or sales of a certain product. And they got in the business to do that. And they don't ever mature the business to the next level, which is having systems and operations in place and structures so that other people can repeat a process that they put in place and they can start to delegate more. The people who learn to put in systems, to delegate, to treat their lawyers and accountants and their professionals as assets and not necessary evils. When I see people who just, who have no idea what's going on with the finances of their business because they just submit their tax return stuff once a year, I know it's going to be a suboptimal experience for them. So when you start actually acting like a major, like you're a major corporation, that's when you start actually leveraging, you start basically growing to become a major corporation.
Excellent. And I couldn't agree more. Certainly, as I coach entrepreneurs on the financial stuff, I'm seeing that regularly. And that is that point where that change happens. And that's where all of the growth comes from. So great that you highlighted that.
You're focused on survival at first, right? But, unless you get off the survivalism treadmill, you're never going to get off. You're just going to stay in the same kind of, just day to day, just trying to earn ends meet every day. You have to think about what it's going to be. Basically don't build the business you want today, build the business you want 20 years from now.
Excellent. Well, certainly not doing that is a common misstep, I'm sure, that you see pretty regularly. Are there other common missteps that you'd like our young millionaires in the making to avoid as they either embark on businesses or they continue to grow their primary business or a side hustle they've got?
I'd say a couple things. First off, the second you lose sight of the client's need, you've lost sight of the point of what you're doing. Like, that's just a simple business tenet. If you're not focused on delivering the most valuable experience, whether that be in delivery of a product or service, doesn't matter, you're going to basically lose future sales. End of story. So focus first and foremost on the consumer experience. The second piece, in terms of the structure, know that you got to develop the right team. You have to get the proper accounts, the proper lawyers, the proper advisors in place. Because if you don't, it can be very costly down the road. Now, that said, you don't, here's what it comes down to. Again, don't treat your accountant like a necessary evil. Treat him as a resource. Don't don't go with the cheapest lawyer possible. The cheapest lawyer possible will not keep you out of trouble. So don't be afraid to pay for professionalism as long as you can afford it and work hard to find the right people. The other one key mistake I see a lot of people make early on is also, there's a misnomer. A lot of people think that their accountant's there to basically save them tax. More often than not, the accountant's there to file their taxes. And there's a real difference between planning and accounting. Some accountants are great at planning. Most of them are just tax filers, in my experience. And that's fine. But I'll give you an example. The most common mistake I see when people start making real money in their business is the need to put in a holding company to protect that money from creditors, which makes a lot of sense. But then what happens more often than not is they put in place the most simple structure possible, which then puts them offside for future tax planning. So do not cheap out on this sort of stuff. Get the right advice.
Excellent. And are there any myths or misconceptions that you've heard over the years that business owners have when it comes to working with financial planners like yourself?
Well, I think the real issue, and it's an own goal on the industry, it's a self-inflicted wound. We do not have the greatest standards and practices imposed upon the entire industry. So people at this point get to call themselves whatever it is they want. And they, I made the joke the other day on a forum that, I put up a picture of a Matchbox truck and a picture of a Ferrari, and I said, here's the problem. Both of these are cars. Right? They're both cars, right? So the things that people get away with calling a financial plan in this country is borderline criminal, in my opinion. Basically, don't just settle for the person that you get referred to by a friend. Do some real investigation online as to who you're going to deal with. And everybody will tell you the same thing. They'll all say that they target business owners. What they're really saying is that I target people with money. What the real questions you have to be asking is basically, okay, so what is it you do different for business owners that I'm not understanding? And is that you, or is that a bunch of other people on your team who understand this sort of thing? Because what you really want is that point of contact who really truly understand what entrepreneurship is and how to deal with these people. So you want someone who's going to deliver comprehensive planning to you. That is unfortunately harder to find. I would say there's a couple starting points. FP Canada, the financial planning FP Canada, who issues the CFP credential in Canada, they have a database of planners. The IAFP, the Institute of Financial Planners, Advanced Financial Planners, they are an association of nothing but practicing planners, smaller group, but they actually produce plans. They have a database, and then my other association, Financial Planning Association of Canada, also maintains a database. So be very careful of who you find and deal with, because more often than not, people say, I already have a guy who does that, and all they have is someone who invests them in mutual funds, not someone who actually does real fundamental planning for them.
Excellent. I think that's great. We are here on Young Money. We're really focused on the practical tips that people can put into practice. And so I think that gives great resources where people can find the right professionals and ask the right questions. If you can leave the listeners right now with one final piece of advice or something you want to reinforce that you've already mentioned, what is it you want them to take away with them?
I will say that, especially if they're looking to entrepreneurship, the true way of creating wealth in one's life and creating change in the world is through entrepreneurship. So I commend anyone who wants to go down that route. But I will also say that it is also, I joke that it is the most bipolar thing anyone can ever opt into, because it is, everybody starts off thinking they're going to be successful. Otherwise you wouldn't do it. Success never comes quickly. It takes a long time, and there's a lot of ups and downs, and you will doubt yourself throughout that time. Just know that is normal. But I will also say, do not think you can do it all yourself, whether that be the advice from someone like me or an accountant or lawyer, or even the function in your business. There's always someone who can sell better than you. There's always someone who can manufacture better than you. There's always someone who can do, it's the simple example I always give is the guy who wins the decathlon, the gentleman or woman who wins the decathlon, they could never win a gold medal in any of the individual disciplines. They couldn't. They're a generalist. Right? Never doubt that there's someone better at a very specific function than you, and be willing to enable them and check your ego, because if you leverage the skills of other people, that's how you become truly successful.
Excellent. And I think that's fantastic. Now, before I let you go, what are you working on now, and where can listeners go to find out more about you and your business?
I am working on a number of things. So my core business is Woodgate Financial. So woodgate.com is where you'll find me. I have a separate website for all kind of my media and my other things that I work on. So that's at jasonpereira.ca, Pereira. And you'll find that I have 2 different podcasts, one on fintech, one for Canadian business owners. You'll also find that I also have some blog posts and other media, and it also links through to various associations and whatnot that I'm involved with. It's a good resource to, I'd say, educate yourself and also direct yourself towards people who can help.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate the candor with which you shared everything, and you really gave us the straight goods around what business owners are doing well, where those common missteps are, how they need to go about evaluating, finding the right planner to help them with their personal and their business lives as well. And you've given us a lot of great resources that we can go and do independent research and kind of learn things ourselves. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jason.
My pleasure.
So there you have it, listeners. Jason Pereira, certified financial planner, as well as many other things, including podcast host, media correspondent, and all-around lecturer on everything financial planning and finances related to business. Until next time, take good care and stay financially fit.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. To all you millionaires in the making out there, if you love this podcast, please subscribe on iTunes to keep your financial fitness training going. Oh, and leave us a review. And be sure to visit Visit, 2 S's, 2 T's, financialfitness.com to take your free financial fitness assessment. Find out how financially fit you really are. See you next week, young millionaires to be.